What happens when Hollywood royalty meets hard-hitting journalism and refuses to play by the rules? In just 43 seconds, one explosive comment would turn a routine interview into television chaos and end with security being called to escort a former actress turned duchess off the Fox News set forever. This is the story of how Meghan Markle's sit-down with Bret Baier became the most-watched meltdown in cable news history. It started like any other Tuesday evening at Fox News headquarters in New York City. The green room buzzed with the usual pre-show energy as makeup artists applied final touches and producers shuffled through last-minute notes. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the Duchess of Sussex had agreed to her first American television interview since stepping back from royal duties, and everyone knew this could make or break careers. Bret Baier, the seasoned anchor of Special Report, had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Known for his calm demeanor and surgical precision with tough questions, he had interviewed presidents, world leaders, and countless celebrities. But Meghan Markle represented something entirely different. She was polarizing, unpredictable, and had a history of controlling her narrative with an iron fist. As 6 o'clock approached, tension filled Studio B. Camera operators adjusted their angles, while sound technicians tested microphone levels one final time. The lighting crew made subtle adjustments to ensure both host and guest would look their best on screen. This interview had the potential to be appointment television, the kind of moment that would be replayed for years to come. Meghan arrived fashionably late, sweeping into the studio wearing a cream-colored blazer that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her entourage followed closely behind, whispering instructions and reminders as she settled into the guest chair across from Baier. The Duchess smiled for the cameras during the sound check, but those who knew her well could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her jaw clenched slightly when she thought no one was looking. Baier reviewed his notes one last time. His first question would be softball, designed to put his guest at ease. Then he would gradually increase the pressure, probing into the controversies that had followed Meghan since her royal wedding. The goal was simple: get her to open up, to reveal something genuine beneath the carefully crafted public persona. The floor manager began his countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good evening, I'm Bret Baier, and tonight we have a very special guest joining us here on Special Report. The Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Meghan's smile was picture perfect, the same one she had practiced countless times in front of mirrors and photographers. Thank you for having me, Bret. I'm delighted to be here. Let's start with something our viewers are curious about. How are you adjusting to life back in California after everything that happened in the United Kingdom? The Duchess shifted slightly in her chair, her media training kicking in automatically. Well, Bret, it's been a journey of growth and self-discovery. Harry and I are focused on building something meaningful, something that can make a real difference in people's lives. We're not looking backward. We're moving forward with purpose and intention. Baier nodded, making a note on his papers. The answer was exactly what he had expected, polished and revealing nothing. Time to dig a little deeper. Speaking of moving forward, there have been some significant revelations in recent months about your time as a working member of the royal family. Some critics have suggested that your public statements haven't always aligned with what palace insiders have described. How do you respond to those who question your version of events? For just a moment, something flickered across Meghan's face. The smile faltered. Her eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, but she recovered quickly, leaning forward slightly as if sharing a confidence with viewers. Bret, I think what's important to understand is that there were forces at work behind the scenes that the public never saw. People who had their own agendas, their own reasons for wanting to control the narrative. My truth, our truth, has always been consistent. The fact that some people find that inconvenient doesn't make it any less valid. Baier sensed an opening. This was exactly the kind of response that would generate headlines and social media buzz. But he also knew he had to be careful. Push too hard, too fast, and she might shut down completely. When you say forces at work, can you be more specific? Are you referring to other members of the royal family, or perhaps palace staff members who might have had different perspectives on certain events? Meghan's posture stiffened. The question was more direct than she had anticipated, cutting through her carefully constructed talking points. She glanced briefly toward her publicist, who was standing just off camera, before turning back to Baier with a look that could freeze water. I think, Bret, that there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what my role was and what I was trying to accomplish. I wasn't just some Hollywood actress playing dress-up. I brought real-world experience, real solutions to problems that had been ignored for generations. But there were people, powerful people, who felt threatened by that kind of change. The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees. Crew members exchanged glances, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. Baier maintained his professional composure, but internally he recognized this as the moment where the interview could either produce genuine insight or explode into something much more dramatic. "I understand that change can be difficult in any institution," Baier replied carefully. "But surely you can appreciate that there were established protocols and traditions that had worked for the monarchy for centuries. Was there perhaps room for compromise on both sides?" Meghan's laugh was sharp, lacking any warmth or genuine humor. "Compromise, Bret? I compromised every single day for years. I compromised my values, my voice, my basic human dignity. And what did I get in return? Character assassination, coordinated attacks on my mental health, and watching my husband suffer because he chose to protect his wife and son." Now they were getting somewhere. Baier could feel the energy in the room shifting, the interview taking on a life of its own. This was no longer a standard celebrity chat. This was becoming something much more compelling and potentially explosive. "You mentioned attacks on your mental health. In your previous interviews, you've spoken about feeling suicidal during your time as a working royal. That's obviously a very serious allegation. Do you believe that members of the royal family or their staff deliberately contributed to those feelings?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Everyone in the studio held their breath, waiting to see how Meghan would respond. Would she deflect, as she had been trained to do? Would she provide another carefully crafted non-answer designed to sound profound while revealing nothing substantial? Instead, she did something that surprised everyone in the room. She leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and fixed Bret Baier with a stare that could have melted steel. "Bret, I'm going to stop you right there." The studio fell silent except for the quiet hum of cameras still rolling. Meghan's tone had shifted completely, transforming from polished media-trained responses to something much more raw and confrontational. Baier recognized the change immediately, having witnessed similar moments throughout his decades in journalism when interviews took unexpected turns. "I came here tonight expecting a conversation, not an interrogation," Meghan continued, her voice rising slightly. "These questions, this whole approach, it's exactly the kind of hostile treatment that drove us away from that institution in the first place." Baier remained calm, his hands folded on the desk between them. Years of experience had taught him that the most important thing in moments like these was to maintain professional composure while allowing his guests to reveal their true character. "Meghan, I appreciate your perspective, but these are questions that millions of people have been asking since your previous interviews aired. My job is to seek clarity on issues that matter to our viewers. That's not hostility, that's journalism." "Journalism?" Meghan's eyebrows shot up, her voice taking on a tone of disbelief. "Is that what we're calling this? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels like a coordinated attack designed to make me look bad. Just like what happened in the British press. Just like what's been happening for years." The Duchess uncrossed her arms and leaned forward aggressively, pointing a manicured finger at Baier. "You people are all the same. You pretend to want the truth, but what you really want is to tear down a woman who dared to speak up, who dared to challenge a system that was designed to silence people like me." Baier felt the interview slipping into dangerous territory, but he also recognized that this was exactly the kind of authentic moment that viewers craved. Gone was the carefully managed public persona, replaced by someone showing their true colors under pressure. "I think there may be a misunderstanding here," Baier said evenly. "I'm simply asking follow-up questions to statements you've made publicly. If you'd prefer to clarify or expand on those statements, this is your opportunity to do so." "Opportunity?" Meghan's voice cracked slightly, a mixture of anger and something that sounded almost like panic. "You call this an opportunity? Sitting here while you try to twist everything I've said, everything I've been through, into some kind of gotcha moment for your viewers?" She stood up abruptly, the sudden movement causing her chair to scrape loudly against the studio floor. The camera operators instinctively adjusted their angles to follow her movement, unsure whether this was planned, theatrics, or genuine breakdown. "I've had enough of this," she declared, looking directly into the main camera. "This is exactly why we left. This is exactly why we had to protect ourselves and our family from this kind of treatment." Baier remained seated, his voice steady and professional. "Meghan, please sit down. We can adjust the direction of our conversation if you'd like. This doesn't have to be confrontational." "Doesn't have to be confrontational?" she repeated, her voice climbing higher. "You've been confrontational since the moment I walked in here. The way you're looking at me, the way you're phrasing these questions, the whole setup of this interview, it's designed to make me fail." The Duchess began pacing behind her chair, her hands gesturing wildly as her composure continued to unravel. "You know what, Bret? Let me tell you something about yourself. You sit there in your expensive suit, in your comfortable anchor chair, judging people whose experiences you could never understand. You've never been a woman of color trying to survive in a racist institution. You've never had your every word twisted, your every action scrutinized by people who decided they hated you before you even opened your mouth. Baier tried to interject. Meghan, I think we should take a breath here, and don't you dare tell me to take a breath, she snapped, whirling around to face him. That's exactly the kind of condescending patriarchal nonsense I dealt with every single day in that place. Men telling me to calm down, telling me to smile more, telling me to be grateful for the privilege of being slowly destroyed by their system. The studio crew exchanged increasingly concerned looks. This had moved far beyond a difficult interview into something that felt genuinely unstable. The floor manager caught Baier's eye, silently asking whether they should cut to commercial. But the anchor gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. This was live television at its most raw and unpredictable. I'm not trying to condescend to you, Baier said carefully. I'm trying to have a substantive conversation about important issues, but I need you to work with me here, not against me. Meghan let out a bitter laugh that echoed through the studio. Work with you? Like I tried to work with them? Like I tried to be the perfect daughter-in-law, the perfect duchess, the perfect little puppet who would smile and wave and never ask uncomfortable questions? She moved closer to Baier's desk, her voice dropping to an intense whisper that the microphones barely picked up. You want to know the real truth, Bret? The real truth is that they were never going to accept me. Not because of anything I did or didn't do, but because of who I am. And now you're sitting here, doing their work for them, trying to make me look crazy. Trying to make me look like some kind of difficult diva who couldn't handle the pressure. That's not what I'm trying to do at all, Baier replied, maintaining eye contact despite the increasingly uncomfortable proximity. I'm trying to understand your perspective, while also addressing questions that many people have raised about inconsistencies in various accounts of what happened. Inconsistencies? Meghan's voice shot back up to a near shout. The only inconsistency here is between my lived experience and the lies that institution has been spreading to protect themselves. They threw me under the bus to save their own reputations, and now you're helping them do it all over again. She slammed her hand down on Baier's desk, causing his water glass to jump and spill slightly. The loud bang echoed through the studio, causing several crew members to flinch instinctively. I am a human being, Bret Baier. I am a mother, a wife, a woman who has been through hell and back. And I will not sit here and let you or anyone else continue to tear me apart for the entertainment of people who have already made up their minds about me. Baier glanced briefly at his producer, who was making frantic gestures from behind the cameras. They were quickly approaching the point where continuing the interview might become impossible, but he also knew that cutting away now would only fuel more speculation and controversy. Meghan, I understand you're upset, but attacking me personally isn't going to help either of us have a productive conversation. Can we please refocus on the issues rather than making this about the interview format itself? Issues? She repeated incredulously. The issue is that you invited me here under false pretenses. The issue is that you're treating me like some kind of criminal instead of someone who deserves basic human respect. The issue is that this entire network, this entire industry, profits off destroying women like me. The accusations hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was rapidly spreading out of control. Baier felt the weight of the moment, knowing that millions of viewers were watching this unprecedented meltdown unfold in real time. His years of experience had prepared him for difficult interviews, but nothing quite like this. Meghan, that's a very serious accusation you're making about this network. And about me personally, Baier said, his voice remaining steady despite the chaos erupting around him. I think you need to be very careful about the claims you're making on live television. The warning seemed to push Meghan over an invisible edge she had been teetering on since the interview began. Her eyes flashed with something that looked almost dangerous as she moved even closer to his desk. Are you threatening me now, Bret? Is that what this is? Because that would be perfect, wouldn't it? The big scary news anchor threatening the poor little duchess who dared to speak her truth. She laughed again, but this time it sounded completely unhinged, echoing off the studio walls in a way that made everyone present deeply uncomfortable. You know what I think this is really about? I think you're jealous. All of you media people, you're jealous that I found a way out of your sick little game. Baier tried to maintain control of the situation, his training kicking in automatically. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply pointing out that making unfounded accusations against a news organization and its employees on live television has potential consequences that you should consider. Consequences? Meghan's voice climbed to a pitch that was almost painful to hear. You want to talk about consequences? Let me tell you about consequences, Bret. Consequences are having panic attacks in palace bathrooms because you can't breathe under the weight of everyone's hatred. Consequences are watching your husband's family destroy him piece by piece because he chose to protect you instead of them. She was fully shouting now, her carefully styled hair beginning to come loose as she gestured wildly. Consequences are being called a liar by people like you who weren't there, who don't know what happened, who just want to score points with their racist audience by tearing down a black woman who thought she could change things. The racial accusation landed like a bomb in the studio. Crew members looked at each other with expressions ranging from shock to genuine fear about where this was heading. Baier's producer was making increasingly frantic hand signals, but the anchor knew that cutting away now would only make things worse. "Meghan, I need you to stop right there," Baier said, his tone becoming more firm. "You're making very serious accusations about my motivations and my character that are completely unfounded. This interview was scheduled to discuss your experiences and your perspective, not to attack anyone." "Attack!" she shrieked, her voice breaking slightly. "I'm not attacking anyone. I'm defending myself against your attack. This whole thing, this whole setup, it's an attack designed to humiliate me and prove that I was always the problem." She picked up the water glass from Baier's desk, and for a moment, it looked like she might throw it, but instead, she held it up like some kind of prop in her increasingly erratic performance. "You see this? This is what you people do. You invite someone to drink, to be comfortable, to trust you, and then you poison the well. You turn everything into a weapon against them." Baier stood up slowly, recognizing that the situation had moved far beyond salvageable. "Meghan, I think we need to take a break here. You're clearly very upset, and I don't think continuing this interview is in anyone's best interest right now." "Don't you dare dismiss me," she screamed, slamming the glass back down so hard that it cracked. "Don't you dare treat me like I'm some kind of hysterical woman who can't handle a simple conversation. This isn't about me being upset. This is about you being exposed for what you really are." She turned toward the cameras, addressing the viewers directly with wild eyes and a voice that had lost all traces of her usual polished delivery. "Do you see this, America? Do you see how they treat women who tell the truth? This is exactly what they did to me in England, and now they're doing it here too." Baier motioned to his producer, who immediately signaled security. This had gone far beyond a difficult interview into something that felt genuinely unsafe for everyone involved. "Meghan, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the studio now. This interview is over." "Over?" She laughed maniacally. "It's over because you can't handle the truth. It's over because you got caught being exactly the kind of person I said you were. You brought me here to ambush me, and when I fought back, you couldn't take it." Two security guards appeared at the edge of the studio, moving slowly and carefully toward the interview area. Meghan saw them coming, and her expression shifted to something that looked almost triumphant. "Perfect," she said, spreading her arms wide. "Absolutely perfect. Now you're having me physically removed because I had the audacity to stand up for myself. This is going to look great for you, Bret. Really great television." One of the security guards, a large man who clearly had experience with volatile situations, spoke in a calm, professional tone. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us now. Let's make this easy for everyone." "Easy?" Meghan spun toward him, her voice reaching levels that made the sound technicians wince. "Nothing about this has been easy. Nothing about any of this has been easy since the day I married into that family and discovered what they really were." She looked back at Baier one final time, her face contorted with an expression of pure rage, mixed with something that might have been genuine pain. "You think you won here tonight, don't you? You think you proved something about me, exposed some truth about who I really am." Baier remained standing behind his desk, his face grave but professional. "Meghan, I genuinely hope you get the help and support you need." The comment seemed to break something inside her completely. She lunged toward his desk, but the security guards were ready, gently but firmly taking her arms and beginning to escort her away from the interview area. "Help?" she screamed as they guided her toward the studio exit. "The only help I need is for people like you to stop lying about me, stop trying to destroy me, stop pretending that you're the good guys in this story." Her voice grew more distant as they moved her away from the microphones, but the words kept coming, a stream of accusations and grievances that echoed through the studio even after she disappeared from view. The crew stood in stunned silence, unsure of what to do next. Baier slowly sat back down, running a hand through his hair before looking directly into the main camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we'll continue with our regularly scheduled programming." The red recording lights finally went dark, and the studio erupted in whispered conversations and nervous laughter. In 43 seconds of explosive television, a carefully crafted public image had completely shattered, revealing something raw and unpredictable underneath. It would indeed become the most watched interview in cable news history, but not for any of the reasons anyone had originally intended.